All right, you guys, so I have picked out some problems to do from 27 to number 129. So then on Wednesday, maybe we can focus on the second half of the problems. So on number 27, basically it wants us to find the slope of the line. So here is an exact point. This point is 0, 2. And then it looks like this is an exact point. In other words, it goes straight through the corner of that particular coordinate. So if we make our right triangle, remember, oh, sorry guys, I don't know why it's so hard for me to draw a straight line. So basically we write rise over run. So the rise of this triangle is 1, 2, 3. The run is 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope of the line is rise over run, so it would be 3 over 4. 3 over 4. All righty. Number 32. Let me move this for a second. All right, so number 32, determine the equation of the line that passes through the point, -3, -25, with a slope of 7. So we have our slope point formula, and the slope point formula is y minus y1 is equal to the slope times x minus x1. So we basically plug in what we have. So y minus our first y value. So remember our first coordinate, the first number in our coordinate is our x value. The second number is our y value. So y minus 25 is equal to our slope, which is 7, times x minus x1, which is -3. So we're going to do y minus 25 is equal to 7x. So this is minus a negative would be a positive, right? Bam, bam. So 7 times 3 is plus 21. So how do I get y by itself? I add 25 to both sides. So I would have y is equal to 7x plus 46. So that would be the equation of the line. Y is equal to 7x plus 46. Good deal. All right, so number 36, let me erase all this. The equation of the line that goes to the point 2, 8 and is parallel to the line 2x plus 2y equals 2. So the first thing we're going to do is solve this for y. We're going to get y by itself, so we're going to subtract 2x from both sides. So we'd have 2y is equal to -2x plus 2. And then we would divide every single term by 2. So we'd have y is equal to -1x plus 1. So what is true about parallel lines? Well, parallel lines have the exact same slope. So if you had a line that was parallel to this one, the slope of that line would be the same, -1. And it says where B is the equation of the line that goes through point 280. So here's our new point. So once again, we have a point and we have the slope. We know our slope has to be -1 because it has to be the same as this one, right? So we're going to use our y minus y1 is equal to the slope, which is -1, equal or times x minus x1. So here's our x and here's our y. So we're going to do y minus 8 is equal to -1 times x minus, and our x1 is 2. So we're going to have y minus 8 is equal to -1 times x is -x, and -1 times -2 is +2. So the last thing we're going to do is add 8 to both sides. So y equals -x plus 10. So m is -1. And in this case, our y-intercept is +10. Question 41. We could create a table of values in order to graph this. Now this isn't a horizontal or vertical line because we have both an X and a Y in the equation. So remember, for a vertical line, you only have an X, and for a horizontal line, you only have a Y. This time we have both, which means it's a negative slope. That's a negative slope. So let's find a couple of values. So if X is 0, well, if I plug in 0 right here for X, anything times 0 is 0. So when X is 0, Y is 0. And then if I want a number, a whole number, then I'm going to use a multiple of 5, because 5 is the denominator. So I can either use positive 5 or negative 5. So basically, if X is 5, my equation would be negative 2/5 times 5 over 1. So my 5s would cancel. So Y would equal negative 2 over 1, which is negative 2. So if I graph this, X is 0 and Y is 0, so that's 0, 0. And then I could graph 5, negative 2. And that is my line. Oh my goodness, I am so bad at straight lines, you guys. And also remember, I could just, let's see, I could use my rise over run, 1, 2, and then so if I thought about it as rise over run, I could think of it, okay, this is my starting place, and then my rise is 2, 1, 2, down 2, and then right 5, because it's a negative slope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So really I could graph this without a table of values, but they're equal, so it's fine. It doesn't matter. All right, so let's look at question 42. So question 42 gives us a slope-intercept formula. Y equals 2x plus 1. And remember, our slope is the number multiplied by x. So our slope is 2. And then the constant is our y-intercept. So the y-intercept is 0, 1, or just 1. Either way, it wants you to answer it. I'm not sure. And so then we can graph this. So we start at our y-intercept. This is our starting place at positive 1 on the y-axis. And then since our rise is 2 and our run is 1 and it's positive, we would go up 2, 1, 2, right 1. Up 2, right 1. We could do the opposite. We could go down 2, left 1. Draw our straight line, which I'm incapable of. Whoa! Anyway, that's pretty close, I guess, without a ruler. All right, number 44. Now this one is a vertical or horizontal line because there's only one variable in the equation. So are we going to use bucks or are we going to use hoy? All right, since we have a y equals, that means we're going to use hoy, correct? So that means we're going to have a horizontal line at -3. So a horizontal line goes this way, correct? Goes this way. If you look at the horizon, so we go down to -3 on the y-axis, and we make our horizontal line. So this is the line for y equals -3. It goes in both directions forever. And now here we have a vertical line. So in a vertical line, we use bucks, which means there's only an x in the equation. So the only value we have is our x equals what? X is -3. So this coordinate right here is -3, 1. This is -3, 3. This is -3, -3, -3, -5. So no matter what y is, x is -3. So that's this equation for that line. All right, number 53. So this is a system of equations problem. Maria needs to mix a 10% fungicide solution with a 60% fungicide solution to create 200 millimeters of a 32.5% solution. How many millimeters of each solution must Maria use? So we know there's two different solutions. We'll call this one A and this one B. And we know in total we have 200 millimeters. So solution A plus solution B has to equal 200 millimeters. And then the second equation has to do with the percentage of the solution. So of potion A or solution A, we're going to find 10%, 0.10 times A plus 0.6 times B equals not 200, but 32.5. So 0.325, which is equal to, I'm going to use my calculator. So I'm going to multiply 200 times 0.325 is 65. So actually, I'm going to erase this and just let it equal, what did I say? 0.65. All right. Well, 0.65. All right, so this is a, what's it called? A solution, systems of equations. So I can either solve for A and plug in 200 minus B into this equation, or I can use the elimination method. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply. I want to cancel out my A's. So how do I get rid of 0.1A? Well, I would combine it with negative 0.1A. So I'm going to leave my second equation alone, and I'm going to multiply the whole first equation by negative 0.1. So negative 0.1 times A is negative 0.1A. Negative 0.1B, or times B, is equal to negative 0.1B. And then 200 times negative 0.1 is negative 20. So I'm going to use my addition property. So 0.1A minus 0.1A, I got rid of my A's. So 0.6 minus 0.1 is 0.5B. And 65 minus 20 is 45. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 0.5. And 45 divided by 0.5 is 90. So of my second solution, I used 90 millimeters. And if I had a total of 200 milliliters, and 90 was of the second solution, that means 110 was of my first solution. All right, so those are my final answers. So now we're on question 62. So when we're going to rationalize the denominator, that means we don't want any radicals in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by basically kind of like the reciprocal of 3 plus square root 6. Or what's the other word? They use an R word, but now I can't remember what it is. So let me get rid of this at the top. So I'm going to rewrite it right here. We're going to multiply by, we want that negative, or excuse me, we want that radical 6 to go away. So how would I cancel out a radical 6? We're going to multiply by 3 minus square root 6. So then we're going to use the, we're going to FOIL it, right? Whatever I multiply the bottom by, we got to multiply the top by. So basic, oh no, what did I just do? Well, my goodness, I guess I'll do it again. All right. 7 plus square root 6 over 3 plus square root 6. I'm going to multiply by 3 minus square root 6 because we want those two middle terms to disappear. So we're going to, let's start with the denominator. So we're foiling this, right? So 3 times 3 is 9. So then we have 3 square roots of 6, negative 6. excuse me, negative 3 square roots of 6 times positive 3 square roots of 6. So those two middle terms would cancel each other out. And then we have the positive square root of 6 times negative square root of 6 equals minus 6. So that's our denominator. Then the numerator, we're going to do 7 times 3, which is 21. 7 times negative 6, that would be negative 7 square roots of 6. And then we have positive 3 square roots of 6. And then square root of 6 times the negative square root of 6 is minus 6, because that would be negative square root 36, right? So what do we have now? Well, 21 minus 6, that's 15. And then we have negative 7 plus 3 would be negative 4 square roots of 6 over 9 minus 6 is 3. Now, normally you might think, okay, well, I can divide 15 and 3 by 3, but since 4 is not divisible by 3, we can't do anything to it. That's our final answer. That's our final answer. All right, moving on. Number 70. We're going to express negative 5 square roots of negative 36 as a complex number. So that tells us that probably we're going to have an I in our answer. So we're going to think of this as negative 5 times square root of positive 36 times the square root of negative 1. Because isn't negative 1 times 36 negative 36? Well, 36 is a perfect square. Square root of 36 is 6. And the square root of negative 1 is I. So finally, we're going to do negative 5 times 6 is negative 30. And the square root of negative 1 is I. So the final answer is negative 30I. All right, so number 80, we're going to factor by grouping. So that means we're going to divide this whole term, or this whole expression, we're going to turn it into two different groups. So what do the first two terms have in common, or what can we pull out of the first two terms? We can pull out an x. So x squared divided by x is x, and 2x divided by x is positive 2. What can we divide 8x and 16 by? We can divide them both by 8. So 8x divided by 8 is x, and 16 divided by 8 is 2. So then our final answer, one of our common factors is x plus 2. And our other factor is x plus 8. And that is our final answer. We have just factored that by grouping. And that's number 80 in your final exam study guide. All right, number 90, it says solve the equation. It says write your answer as a list of integers or reduced fractions. So basically, we're wanting to think of two numbers. When we multiply them, we get a positive 40. And when we add them, we get 13. So we're going to think of all the factors of 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10. But what two numbers that multiply to give us 40 add to give us 13? Well, that would be the numbers 5 and 8, right? So this sign tells us that the two numbers have the same sign, and this tells us what the sign of both numbers are. So they're both positive. So if we double check it, 5 times 8 is 40. And 5 plus 8 is 13. So we know that is correct. Now this time it is set equal to 0, which means we have to set both of these expressions equal to 0 and then solve for x. So we know that x is equal to, the opposite of 5 is negative 5, and the opposite of 8 is negative 8. So those are our two answers. X is equal to both negative 8, ooh, I lost my pen, negative 8 and negative 5. All right, so number 95, I'm not going to solve this all the way. I just want to remind you when it tells you to use a quadratic formula, I just want to remind you what it is. So remember our quadratic formula is negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we can just plug all of that right into our calculator. So in this situation, a is equal to 2. B is equal to 3 and C is equal to -1. So I would start with what's under the radical, plug that straight in your calculator, plug everything else in, and most of the time you end up with 2 answers here. But for the sake of time, I'm going to continue on. All right, so now I'm going to look at number 106. So here we have, it says, consider the quadratic formula or the quadratic function. It says, find the following for this parabola. What is the line of symmetry? So to find the line of symmetry, that basically means we need the x value of our vertex. So remember the vertex, we're going to use -b over 2a. So in this situation, our a is -3. Our B is -14 and our C is 4. So the opposite of B would be +14 over 2 times A. So our vertex for our x value, we have 14 over -6. Those are both even, so we can divide them by 2. So we have 7 over -3. So that's our x value of our vertex, 7 or -7 over 3. And now we need our y value. But since we already have our x value, we already know the answer to letter A. The line of symmetry is x equals -7/3. So that's the line where if we fold our parabola, we would have, they would fit exactly, both sides would fit on top of each other, right? So now we're going to plug in this for x into our equation. So we're going to multiply -3 times -7/3 squared minus 14 times -7/3 plus 4. All right, and I did this earlier on my paper. Let me see if I can find the answer. Yes, so when I did it earlier, and hopefully you guys can do it, you have a calculator. So I just I would plug this directly into my calculator right here. I did that earlier, and my y value is 61/3. 61/3. So it says the vertical intercept. What does that mean, the vertical intercept? The vertical intercept is the y-intercept. So vertical intercept is the same thing as saying the y-intercept. Where'd my pen go? There we go. The y-intercept is, well, basically that means what is y when x is 0? Well, when x is 0, anything times 0 is 0, minus 14 times 0 is 0. So basically what we have left is 0 minus 0 plus 4. So our y-intercept is 0, 4. And then finally, letter D wants to know our 2 x-intercepts, which means we set y equal to 0. So y, if y is 0, we're going to use the quadratic equation. We're going to use a quadratic equation. We're going to plug that into our calculator. So the opposite of B, so the opposite of -14, whoops, that's be +14, plus and minus, we'll put them separately in our calculator. So we'll do -14 squared, which is a positive number, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2A, which is -6. So I'm going to plug that in my calculator with a plus first and then a minus. And I did this earlier. It says round to the nearest, or the 2 decimal places. So my first answer was negative 4.94. And my y value is 0. And the second answer, when I used the plus, was 0.27, comma 0. Those were my two answers. All right, so then problem number 29. Remember, when you have an equal sign, you get to cancel out your denominators. So to find the least common multiple, you multiply your denominators together. So 7 times m is 7m. So I'm going to multiply each number times 7m. Eight over 7 equals negative 5 over m times 7m. All right, so for the first term, we can cancel out the m's. The second term, we can cancel out the 7's. And then on the right side of the equal sign, we get to cancel out the m's. So 7 times 10 is 70, plus 8 times m is 8m, equals negative 5 times 7 is negative 35. So then we're going to subtract 70 from both sides. So we have 8m is equal to negative 105. And then to solve for m, we divide by 8. And since it doesn't go evenly, our m is equal to negative 105 over 8, or we could write it as a mixed number. All right, you guys, that's all I have for now. So on Wednesday, you guys be prepared to share your papers. And then if you have any questions from question 1, what problem we were about 130 for the rest of the final exam review, then bring those up and we will talk about those as well. Okay. All right, you guys have a great night.